so rack 'em up. Ooh, mama, it's cocktail hour, so pour it up. Pour it up.
What's up, guys? It's your girl, Zaida Lisa. Welcome to Mama's Cocktail Hour. Tonight, we are going to be discussing the juicy book, Bling. And it is written by Erica Kennedy. It is alleged that this book has something to do with Diddy. So the main character is Lamont, and he is giving us Diddy vibes, but he's also could be giving us, people said in the comments, Dame Dash, Russell Simmons. So we really getting into the book. We are at chapter 10, and chapter 10 is called Things Done Changed. They had her farewell party at Winky's. Mimi and Toya got tipsy off a cheap bottle of champagne. Keisha got sick from eating too much cake. Kenny, furious that she had gotten a deal without him, showed up ranting and raving and was tossed out onto the street by Winky himself. Angela cried the whole time, her tears a mixture of joy and sadness. The next day, Mimi was off to New York. Her first week in the city was already booked solid. Imani had given her an Hermes appointment book as a present and taken the liberty of filling it with appointments. Mimi had lunch with Allison Beth Cohen, the PR dynamo who ran ABC Publishing, the firm that handled the TLE account. She was impossibly thin, bleach blonde, tornado of a woman who walked very fast but took tiny steps. Everyone called her Ali C, like she was a rapper or something. She went shopping at Pottery Barn with Imani for some knickknacks to warm up the company apartment, which turned out to be Lamont's former residence. A spacious one-bedroom co-op on Jane Street in the West Village. Imani said Lamont had been trying to unload it for 3 years, but since no one was willing to meet his price, it had become a crash pad of sorts for various friends and artists. She met with a vocal coach, a manically cheerful old black woman named Yolanda, who flailed her arms a lot. It had taken her aback at first that the label wanted her to see this woman for 3 sessions a week indefinitely. What was wrong with her voice? After Imani explained that even the most seasoned vocalists work with coaches to keep their instruments tuned, she felt better. There was an appointment with Dr. Regina Lipsky, a sleek woman who wore kitten heels and a white lab coat and proclaimed herself dermatologist to the stars. Which stars is confidential, she remarked without being asked. Then again, unprovoked, she offered, well, Madonna is a former client, and Versace's dead, so there's 2. Happy? She gave Mimi a diamond peel with a little machine that buffed her skin and put her on antibiotics. Imani scheduled for her a peel every month for the next 6 months. Coming the following week, she had a dentist appointment. Imani said her teeth were yellowish, but the dentist would fix that. Mimi studied her smile in the bathroom mirror. Her teeth looked white to her. Even Lamont exuded a "my time is money and you can't afford a split second" air. Invited her out on the town. They went to some boutique opening where there were more bizarrely dressed people on display than there were clothes. Lamont looked like he was going to the Oscars. Mimi, who used a bit of her advance money to go on a conservative shopping spree at Urban Outfitters, looked like she was going to the mall. And there was a meeting at the office. Okay. Take a break here. And there was a meeting at the office where she had to sing in a conference room in front of 25 members of the staff. She sang Amazing Grace a cappella She sat down in the back corner afterward, and 10 of the remaining staffers started talking about her like she wasn't in the room. The words marketing, positioning, imaging, and crossover were thrown around. There was no mention of her singing. After about 20 minutes, Imani let her out, but she realized she accidentally left behind the all-important date book. When she went back in a minute to retrieve it, Lamont was saying, "We should do something about her nose." Everyone sitting around the table looked up at her as she reflexively touched her nose. No one seemed embarrassed that she had heard them make that awful comment. They actually looked like they were checking on her, Honker, preparing to give Lamont a full report as soon as she departed. Not to worry, Imani reassured her when Mimi told her what she heard. "Your nose is lovely. I'm sure the idea will be vetoed." And yesterday, a girl named Lena had called to make a date for lunch. "Yo, Monty told me to holla," was her opening gambit. The doorman had just buzzed, announcing Lena's arrival. Now, Mimi looked through the peephole of the apartment's front door, waiting for her guest to appear. Lena Whitaker breezed into the elevator. Lamont had told her that his new singer Mimi was really hot. Mimi must be truly beautiful for Lamont to describe her in that way. He held women up to a rigid standard of beauty and chased all those model bitches. Or maybe he was just trying to hype Mimi up because she was signed to his label. Lena wondered if Lamont had ever described her as really hot. Probably not. At 5'4", all tits and ass with only a hint of a waist, she shielded away from the lowriders she saw crowding the stores. Nevertheless, Lena Whitaker was not one to sweat a bitch, no matter how fly, and she was convinced she could hold her own with any looker. After all, she had a lovely face, slanted eyes with the longest eyelashes, a cute stumped nose, and cheekbones that could cut glass. And the brothers appreciated her thickness. She was feeling pretty good about her cute, thick self today. Her cinnamon skin was still lightly sun-kissed after an exciting getaway to Miami a week ago. That somehow made her feel sexier. Her girl Kiko, a half Japanese, half black makeup artist with a ghetto fabulous flair, was working a photo shoot down there, so Lena had jetted down for the weekend, just to hang. Kiko was wild as hell, so it was guaranteed fun. Who knew who she would hook up with there? Crazy G. He was all she could think about now. She'd met him at the album release party for Lady D, the flashiest and most raunchiest female rapper in the game. Her 3 big hits off the debut album, Ladylike, were titled My Clit, Ice Me Down, and On Your Knees, Ninja. The party was Club Rolex, the strip joint where Lady D used to work, under the stage name Chanel. There were big booty girls flipping their weaves while they slithered around poles, offering lap dances that were paid by Lady D's record label. It was the best party Lena had ever been to. Open bar all night, and partying was her forte. Secretly, Lena longed to be outrageous like Lady D, who looked like a black Pamela Anderson, tousled blonde tresses, and all pretty and sexy in an in-your-face way. Lena acted like she was just as confident, but Lady D, who Vibe magazine had dubbed the goddess of bitch power, didn't have to act. Crazy G, an unsigned rapper and member of Lady D's camp, was fine as hell. Tattoos all over his muscle arms, smooth coffee brown skin, bald head, and the prettiest smile that shone of gold. The king of thug that made Lena's pussy contract involuntarily. He taken her out to dinner the night after the party to some soul food shack in the Opelika section of Miami. It was amazing how they were driving along, and then all of a sudden, the surroundings changed. They went from greenery to ghetto in one block. He'd explained that the G actually stood for Greg, but professionally it stood for gangster. But when it comes to the ladies, it stands for game, he joked. Lena, who thought it was cool and kind of retro that these Miami cats rock gold teeth instead of platinum, wanted to jump over the table and maul him right there and then. The feeling was mutual. Come on, nah, girl, he whispered. Later up in her room at the Delano, where her Cosabella thong was the only article of clothing she still had on. Let a ninja get some dessert. He had a tattoo that spelled out Crazy G in Gothic lettering on his washboard stomach, and it was underlined by a long stab wound. It was underlined by a long stab wound. He was such a perfect physical specimen that Lena felt a momentary ripple of shame that she wasn't. Didn't bother Crazy G, who enjoyed himself plenty, sucking ferociously on her 34D breasts. But if it was pussy he wanted, it was pussy he got. She let him dive in face first, and he made her come so hard she went into spasms. People always said black men didn't like to go downtown, but Lena had found that to be an urban myth. He took off his boxer shorts and revealed the biggest DICK she's ever seen, personally or in porno. She had felt it all night rubbing up against her, but once he whipped it out, she was forced to flick on the light. Seeing it from all angles, it was a sight to behold. She wanted to devour it, like he'd done to her. But what would Lady D think? He was in D's camp, and tales always traveled. Lena had learned that the hard way. And fuck what you heard, she wasn't no hoe. Oh, is it 4 in the morning, Lena said to him. I have to get up early for my flight tomorrow. Her flight was actually at 3 in the afternoon, which means she had to get up around 11, but that was early for her. I should go to bed. You already in bed, girl, Crazy G had pointed out anxiously. Come on, just suck me. She kicked him out without blowing him or effing him, but she got hers. And that story made Lady D very proud. Oh, he been heated, but he paged her 6 times the next day and called her every day since, hadn't he? Lena shredded to think that Daddy would say if he ever got wind of her dalliance with Crazy G. And there would definitely be more hooking up in the future. Lena's father, Marlon Whitaker, was an entertainment lawyer. No, the powerhouse entertainment lawyer. And now he had gotten into producing movies, one of which had won an Oscar last year. He was on the board of the Fresh Air Fund, always quick to write a check for any charitable cause. Everyone's favorite guy. Blah, blah, blah. Being Marlon Whitaker's daughter made Lena feel like somebody and nobody at the same time. He used to try to set her up with decent, quotation marks, red, boring boys spawned of his stuck-up friends. But her father didn't nose too much into her love life anymore. Presumably because he was afraid of what he might learn. She'd only ever really dated one guy, a hip-hop producer named Trevor Banks, though she gotten busy with plenty. Her father didn't like the way Trevor jeans sagged in his seat. For Christmas, Daddy gave him a belt. Lena had graduated from Meadowcrest, 2 years behind schedule because she's been kicked out of 4 other private schools. For graduation, Daddy had suggested she go on an all-expenses paid year-long overseas trek with a friend so she could, as he put it, expand your narrow, hip-hop obsessed vision of the world. To Marlon, popular music meant jazz and Motown soul. Rap was not music. In his estimation, it was insolent noise that glorified criminality, degraded women, and broadcast a negative image of African Americans to the world. Sensing that the Find Yourself trip was just a way for him to get rid of her for a year, Lena declined. He was always so busy with his work, and packing her off to India or wherever would make his life just swell. Slow your roll, Daddy. Whenever she was in a pinch, she invoked the name of her mother, Nancy, who died of ovarian cancer during her freshman year. Marlon had the Nancy Winokur Research Fund up and running, and 6 months later, the annual gala was a hot ticket on the charity circuit. The sympathy bid would work well, and Marlon would back off some, but the truth was, Lena had been buck-ass wild well before her mother's death. She told Daddy she would, in fact, take him up on the all-expenses-paid year off, but she spent the year in the New York apartment and set her own schedule. What she didn't tell him was that she really didn't have any good friends to invite. Certainly not anyone who wanted to spend an extended period of time traveling third world countries with her, volatile as she was. After that standoff, Marlon had threatened, "You have 1 year, Marlena. Get it together, or I'm cutting the purse strings. I mean it this time." That was 8 months ago, and Lena hadn't gotten it together at least. She shopped, lunched, parties, got drunk, and slept late, struggling to get herself out of the family's Park Avenue Classic 8 to do anything at all. Lena's only real goal in life was to snag a famous boyfriend. Now that she had Crazy G hooked, all she had to do was reel him in. Oh, and one small snag. He needed to become famous. He would. She would make sure of it. He was a gifted lyricist, well on his way to stardom. Lena looked at this as her way up. Get to the party early before the VIP gets crowded. She got out the elevator and made a left. She'd never been to this place where Lamont lived here. He'd asked her to go show his new artist the ropes in New York, and she was happy to do it. This was just what she needed, a new friend. Someone who didn't know how she regularly got trashed in the papers for getting fall down drunk at some party. Anyway, that was all over. She was turning over a new leaf starting today. She walked to the end of the hall before realizing she should have made a right. She walked back. As she reached to ring the doorbell of 7C, the door swung open. And there was Mimi, smiling. Lamont wasn't just hyping her up. She was hot. Chapter 11. How We Do. By the time they strolled a little cafe called Tartine on West 14th Street and ordered lunch, Mimi had gleaned a wealth of personal information about Lena Whitaker. She was a recent high school graduate who was taking a year off to explore her options. Mimi wondered what her definition of recent was, since Lena also said she just turned 21. "You missed my party. It was the shit." Her father worked mostly in Los Angeles, but Lena did not go into what kind of work he did. She lived uptown in her family's apartment with no adult supervision except for her family's longtime housekeeper. Her oldest sister, Alexandra, got on her nerves. She's getting an MBA from the Wharton School of Business. Lotta fucking da. She had a boyfriend, a rapper named Crazy G, whom she had met in Miami. She was a hip-hop fanatic. "Bitch, you gonna eat all of that?" Lena shrieked when the waitress put a gigantic grilled chicken and portobello mushroom sandwich with a mountainous side of fries in front of Mimi. A woman sitting alone at a nearby table in the tiny bistro glanced over, obviously wondering why this pretty young girl was being called a bitch. Mimi winced slightly, but Lena just scooped up a handful of fries and prattled on. People didn't talk that way in Toledo, at least not the people Mimi knew. but she noticed a lot of people here did. When Imani had run into a friend as they were leaving Republic, a noodle shop on Union Square, the friend asked if she found a man yet. She replied, "Bitch, please." Allie C had ended a cell phone conversation with a female rapper she represented by saying, "Bitch, don't get me started." Lamont and his male cronies had a longer list of terms from which to choose when addressing one another. MFer, money, pimp, playboy, player. Mostly they just fell back on the timeless ninja. Guys, I'm paraphrasing. You know what that is, right? Okay. Mimi realized that when Lena said bitch, she was using it as a synonym for girlfriend. It was all about context, but she wasn't yet used to being on the receiving end of such language. Hence her involuntary wince. "So how do you know Lamont exactly?" Mimi asked. Lena was almost young enough to be his daughter. Were they close friends? "I've been knowing Lamont," Lena answered with a self-satisfied smile. Truth was, Lamont had taken a 17-year-old party-hopping Lena into his crew as a mascot of sorts because he was hoping to get close to Marlon Winokur, one of the most respected men in the entertainment industry. She managed to maintain her position by keeping Lamont entertained with the wild antics. "I get invited to all the parties," Lena shuffled a forkload of goat cheese salad into her mouth. Only A-list, nah, I mean, I know everybody." "You know who I think is super fine," Mimi said, hoping Lena knew this person. "That model, Omar LaRue. He was in those Tommy Hilfiger ads, you know?" Lena put up a go no further hand and exposed a mouthful of half-eaten salad and said, "I don't just know him. I had him." "Had him?" "I was effing around with him for a hot minute." "No," Mimi choked. Lena nodded, stabbing at her salad. "Yes. I think he's so hot." "So did I," Lena said blandly. "What happened?" "He kept trying to do me raw." Mimi looked puzzled, and Lena thought, this girl needs to get a translation book if she's going to be rolling with the TLE squad. "Raw? Without a condom," she alluded. "And then I found out he gave his ex herpes." "No," Mimi gasped. Lena said with a disgusted curled lip. "So I asked him about it, nah, I mean, and this ninja had the nerve to come out with it. I haven't had a breakout in 2 months. You believe that?" "Unbelievable," Mimi snorted. "So I told him, look, player, I don't care if this shit is active or inactive. This is information I need to know." She sucked her teeth. "Ninjas ain't shit. I'm so glad I never let him touch me without a rubber." "So that was it?" Mimi asked, wondering just how many people Lena had had. "Yeah, I kicked his ass to the curb with a quickness. He had a little DICK anyway." "A little disease DICK," Mimi added, gleefully taking part in the man bashing. "Who would have thought Omar LaRue could look that good but be nasty? Kind of like Jamal. Men were such pigs." "I saw him on a huge billboard yesterday on Houston Street," Mimi said, pronouncing the streets' names as one would the city. "Where?" "Houston Street." "Houston," Lena corrected. "Houston." "Yeah, I saw it." She leaned toward Mimi and cracked, "I know for a fact those briefs are stuff. Nah, I mean." "I know exactly what you mean," Mimi concurred, finally figuring out the standard English translation of nah, I mean. The waitress came over for dessert orders, and Lena automatically said, "Nothing for me." Mimi pointed out a tasty-looking apple tart in the bakery-style display case. And then without prodding, Lena said, "Well, okay, one for me too." "I really like your hair," Mimi said, admiring Lena's short Halle Berry style pixie. Lena touched it unsurely. "Really? I just had it cut for the first time in a week. I kept thinking it was up in a ponytail. Then I would put my hand up there and realize I'm damn near bald." She dove into the tart as soon as the waitress put it down. "It looks really good on you," Mimi reassured her. "Thanks. And speaking of hair, we have to do something about yours." Lena pulled a Palm Pilot out of her Louis bag. "I spoke to Rod at James Scott." "Who?" Mimi interjected, slightly disoriented by all the unfamiliar names coming at her. "Rod, James Scott, who?" Lena looked up. "My hairstylist, Rod Horton, at the James Scott salon. He usually doesn't have immediate openings," she said, "but I told him you were a close friend." Lena smiled at her own pull. Mimi was getting more confused. This was the first time they met. Lena hadn't ever known what her hair looked like until today. "Lamont told me to handle the hair situation," Lena said in response to Mimi's befuddled look. She was thrilled when Lamont told her to befriend Mimi, get her acquainted with the hip-hop scene, and do something about her hair. Now Lena actually had to put things on her to-do list. "Oh," Mimi murmured. Lamont hadn't said anything to her about the hair situation. "He said your hair was too..." Lena made quotation marks in the air. "Neo-soul." She paused, then regrettably added, "I see what he means, boo." She tilted her head to get a look at Mimi's bushy ponytail. "Can you even run a comb through that shit?" "Only when it's wet or with a lot of conditioner." "Yeah, you need a relaxer or at least a good flat iron," Lena said. "Rod will decide. He'll be back from Disney World in a few days." "He went to Disney World with his kids." "He has a few boys," Lena cracked, "but they ain't kids. He went down for a gay day." "Gay day?" "Yeah," Lena said. "You know how they like to party." "Right," Mimi said vaguely. Getting her hair relaxed sounded good. She never wore her hair loose because she looked like Shaka Khan. "Are you going to come with me?" "Sure. Will." Lena put away her palm. "One day you are going to go shopping with Vanessa." "Shopping?" Mimi said, lost again. "Who's Vanessa?" "Boo boo," Lena screamed, as all the information was front page news known by everyone. "Lamont's sister-in-law. She's taking you shopping." "She is? No one from the label scheduled with you?" "No." "Well, Vanessa could go all day. I can't keep up with her, so I might sit that one out." "Are you friends with Daryl?" "Wouldn't say friends," Lena answered sourly. "I don't think he likes me," Mimi said, hoping Lena could tell her what his deal was. "Don't take it personally," Lena said breezily, having an internal debate about whether she should order another tart. She joined the Crunch Gym 3 blocks from her apartment because she wanted to firm up, but in 2 years, she'd never been able to motivate and get over there. "Does he call you Shorty?" "I don't remember." "He will," Lena said. "A lot of guys say that. What's up, Shorty? You know, whatever, whatever. If anything, it's a compliment. Like, what's up, cutie, or something. But pay attention the next time Daryl says that to you. He says it with such venom. Like it's a put down or something. I guess because everyone had been saying that to him all his life. He had a severe short man complex. But I try so hard to be nice to him. He's going to be producing my album. How should I deal with him?" Lena had already decided she and Mimi were going to be best friends. But with this question, Mimi scored many bonus points. Mimi was the new hot girl on TLE, the girl that Lamont was banking on, and Miss Thing was referring to her. As Mimi started her wide eye, Lena gave the question considerably thought. She felt like the all-knowing Wizard of Oz to Mimi's guideless Dorothy. In the distance, she heard a dog barking. Toto? There's no doubt in my mind that he hates you, Lena said bluntly, which made Mimi's hopeful expression sag. Lena put her hand across the table and softened the blow with, because you're very pretty. That tepid compliment was all she was getting. Lamont is high on you, and most upsetting for little country D, you can look down on him literally. Mimi nodded at Lena's sage assessment. Don't feel bad, Lena said. He doesn't like me, Vanessa, Imani, or any of the women in the inner sanctum. The inner sanctum? Yeah, Lamont's people, Lena said impatiently. Did this girl need everything broken down to the letter? With the hushed reverence, Mimi asks, are all the women in the inner sanctum beautiful? You have to be, Lena said smugly, proud to be a member and pissed that she was probably considered the least beautiful of the bunch. But getting back to the problem on the table, she announced dramatically, Daryl is probably in his filthy little Brooklyn studio apartment pushing a hex on you right now. What am I gonna do? Mimi cried, as though Lena was a tarot card reader who just turned over the death card. Lena pressed the tips of her fingers together. Her nails were painted white with chipping multicolored palm trees, a remnant of her Miami trip. He is a hot producer, Lena very reluctantly admitted. He is. Yeah, that song he did for Dickie is retarded. Mimi took it from the smile on Lena's face that retarded meant good. And on the low, he writes most of Dickie's material, Lena said, snapping for the waitress to bring her a second tart. There is your bright side. He'll probably give you some great songs. Just kill him with kindness, Lena said, deciding that that was the way to go. I suspect all that boys need is a little love. The waitress came over with the bill in hand, so Lena bailed on tart number 2, when she knew she was dead wrong even to think about it. Mimi immediately grabbed the bill, saying, my treat. Lena hadn't even reached for her wallet. Thanks, Lena said, scratching a palm tree on her nail. I'll get you next time. Things are kind of tight for me towards the end of the month, nah I mean? No, not really, Mimi said, putting down the 320s. She barely had enough cash. This was a lot for 2 sandwiches and tiny pastries. My money doesn't come to the first, Lena explained somberly. She was referring to her monthly allowance, which was direct deposited into her checking account by her door expression. You'd think she was waiting for food stamps and a welfare check to feed her starving family. I thought you said you didn't work, Mimi said, assuming that by money she meant a paycheck, and also nodding that it wasn't the end of the month, it was the 12th. I don't, Lena said curtly, but the fact that she didn't have any professional goals and didn't aspire to go on higher education was a sore spot for her. Time to change the subject. Want to come over and hang tonight? She untied the waist of her burgundy FUBU sweats and exhaled. Sure, Mimi answered. Great, Lena said, throwing on her fur-lined denim jacket, covering her FUBU hooded sweatshirt. Spend the night if you want. I ain't got shit to do. Okay, Mimi said brightly as they walked out. Let me go over to my place and get some stuff. Lena immediately put her arm up for an approaching cab. Lena, Mimi protested. My apartment is only 3 blocks away. I thought we were going there first. My apartment? Mimi couldn't believe she had a place in New York and a record deal. Every night she'd go to sleep hoping she would wake up to find it was all a dream. I know, but it's cold, Lena complained, and I'm full. I can't walk. Mimi couldn't help chuckling and scooting into the cab behind her. As they waited at the red light, Lena turned to her. So you never told me. You got a man in Toledo? Mimi rolled her eyes. Bitch, please. They laughed. Chapter 12. Queen Bee. Vanessa de la Cruz was gazing into the mirror in her expertly lit bathroom, doing what she did best, admiring her own beauty. She brushed a glob of thick Bobbi Brown lip gloss on her collagen-enhanced lips, blotted, shook out her tumble of tawny locks, and admired herself again. Beautiful, gorgeous beyond, almost ready to go to heaven. She hadn't used any L'Oreal tonight, though the products cluttered her bathroom, a perk of her lucrative contract with the cosmetic company. When they had approached her, she was delighted. When it came to the light that they wanted to hawk anti-wrinkle cream, she wanted to tell them to F off. She didn't have any wrinkles. Well, they were only beginning to sprout. Since she was supposed to look her age in ads, did that mean they weren't going to airbrush? She was 31 and annoyed that she couldn't downgrade to 28 because her adult life was a matter of public record, and some nosy reporter would surely call her out on it. Oh, to be young again. In her business, she felt like an archaeological find. Vanessa had appeared on the cover of every major fashion magazine, all continents, by the time she was 20. At the peak of her fame, she had predictably dated a grunchy 20-something actor, and even more predictably, been dumped by him a year later without explanation. A string of brief and tumultuous failed romances had followed, along with obligatory rehab stay at promises that didn't take. By 26, she had fallen out of favor with the fickle fashion flock, and like most models, had no contingency plan whatsoever. Having drunk from the well of fame and privilege, it was difficult to fade away into anonymity. So she took the L'Oreal job. She had to keep her face out there. But she had her agent negotiated for added compensation for having her face associated with an anti-aging product. On the edge of the soaking bathtub sat Vanessa's best friend, Mustafa, a slightly effeminate, painfully thin native of Senegal, who claimed to be a performance artist. Though curiously, no one, not even Vanessa, had ever seen him perform anything anywhere, and he had no identifiable sources of income. "Baby, is that the baby?" Mustafa inquired lazily, flipping through W. "Lupe's got it," she said, unconcerned, referring to one of the illegal immigrants' nanny trio. Consuela was weekdays, Lupe was weeknights, and Jomari was weekends, holidays, and travel days. If Vanessa's husband, Alonzo, were here, he'd go running. He had extra sensitive ears when it came to the little one. He can hear that kid from 3 rooms away. It was bizarre. Yet when Vanessa would ask him to upgrade her wedding room, he played deaf and dumb. Alonzo was the vice president of hookups at Triple Large Entertainment. That is what it actually said on his business card. Translation: he was the hapless brother of CEO Lamont Jackson. His responsibilities: doing whatever Lamont said. His annual salary: very high 6 figures. Vanessa thought he was a failure. Alonzo would be accompanying them to heaven tonight. He was out of town on some sort of business. Whatever. Marriage didn't really suit Vanessa de la Cruz. By their 4th date, she discovered she was pregnant. They had done the deed on their first, even though Vanessa usually waited until she received an appropriately expensive gift before she invited a man into the paradise of what was her pussy. But Alonzo thought not as high profile or rich as the men she'd been dating for a decade, was too sexy to be denied. Tall and ripped, he had short wavy brown hair, warm chestnut skin, a movie star profile, a husky voice that made everything stupid that came out of his luscious lips sound arousing. They ran off to Vegas and were married in a $75 ceremony at the Silver Bell Chapel of Love without telling anybody, except the press. It was so exciting. Vanessa decided to have the baby because, well, all the models were doing it, and she was at the cusp of her 30s. Motherhood would be her next act. She appeared on the cover of Fit Pregnancy, in a Gap maternity ad, and nude in her 7-month in an L layout. The accompanying profile, only one page when Vanessa felt she deserved two at least. Quoting her musing about the rigors of pregnancy, "I've gained 9.5 pounds, but the sacrifice, it was so worth it. The joy of impending motherhood. It's a girl, and I can't wait to have another little me running around." And why she plans on naming the baby Vanessa? Why should men be able to do that and not women? Carolina Herrera has a junior. I want one too. Turned out it was a boy. Motherhood was the one thing that suited her less than marriage. Pedro Miguel Antonio de la Cruz Jackson was a cranky baby, and Vanessa was used to sleeping in. The round-the-clock nanny rotation took care of that problem, but Pedro, who had olive skin, big hazel eyes, and a shiny mop of sandy brown curls, just like mommy, always smiled for the cameras, and wasn't that what counted? Mustafa followed Vanessa, and she traipsed into her dressing room, which was designed to look like a chic boutique. She let her long satin robe fall and stood all natural, eyeing the racks of the clothes and cubicles of neatly arranged accessories. Every public outing was an opportunity to preen another fashion shoot. Ashamed of her body, there was no reason. Vanessa was long-limbed with curves in all the right places. She had enough reinforcement from photographers, bookers, and every man she'd ever dated to know that there were no words to adequately describe her physical perfection. Even after the baby, no lipo needed, sweetie. Vanessa's first order of business after returning from her honeymoon in Cap Juluca, an exclusive resort in Antigua, had been to hire a contractor to turn to the workout space in Alonzo's former bachelor pad into a closet for her constantly expanding wardrobe. Once married, Alonzo had expected Vanessa to cook and handle other domestic duties like his mama had done when he was growing up. But when Alonzo had returned home one evening shortly after their lovey-dovey honeymoon, he learned that Vanessa de la Cruz didn't serve. She expected to be served. "I'm hungry," he said. "So am I," she responded, not looking up from her copy of Hola magazine. "What's for dinner?" He made the mistake of pressing. "I don't know," she said, peering at him over the top of the magazine with a look of utter confusion. "What?" When he suggested she cook something, she screamed like a banshee. "I'm pregnant." What did they have in common, really? Alonzo thought their son was a blessing from God. Vanessa looked upon motherhood as a noose slowly tightening around her exquisite neck. Alonzo was a reformed bad boy who grown out of his hardcore partying ways. Vanessa continued to live the life of rich, encumbered, social connected 20-year-old. Alonzo kept imploring her to quit, abusing that shit for everyone's sake. But that shit was the only thing that kept her from confronting the grim reality that she was someone's wife and someone's mother, and therefore expected to act as such. They did not have one thing in common. They did have one thing in common: a love for rough sex. That and the fact that they looked so damn good together was enough to keep the marriage intact for the time being. Dressed in skin-tight white Frankie B jeans, sand panties, stiletto boots, and a fur chubby over a sheer white camisole, Vanessa struck a pose and waited for Mustafa's usual assessment. "Perfect, baby," he cooed. She snorted a line of coke. Mustafa followed suit. Then they both donned their shades and were off without a word of farewell to Lupe or Pedro. Chapter 13. Somebody's Girl. "Take it off, Nessa," Witchy shouted. It was 1 a.m. and heaven was fired, hazard, crowded. DJ Billy, a rail-thin Japanese girl with long multicolored pseudo dreads, was spinning. People really didn't dance at heaven. There was no actual spinning. There was no actual dance floor. The chosen few had made it inside, just sat in their seats and bounced, waving their hands in the air or shouting out song lyrics. Sometimes, usually very late in the evening, an intoxicated girl would climb up on a table and gyrate clumsily. Tonight, Vanessa de la Cruz was that girl. With each off-balance shimmy, the straps off her silk and lace camisole slipped further down her sweaty shoulders. MC Grimy, TLE's 27-year-old star, arrived. Lamont had asked him to stop by after his session at a nearby recording studio so they could have a meeting about this 6th album. Grimy felt more comfortable in his Bronx neighborhood than the midst of all these A-list madness. He was anxious to get back to his regular habitat, which was sitting in the Escalade, lost in a fog of chocolate thigh. After peeping the over-trendy crowd out front, 4 members of his posse, the Dirty Dozen, who were riding with him, decided they better off blazing in the truck. A known celebrity, Grimy had no problem getting through. There were actually pearly gates outside the club and a woman wearing angel wings who was sitting on a high stool with the godlike power to admit or deny entrance to all who approached. "Where's Monty at?" Grimy asked, taking a seat with Lamont and the crew at their banquet. Intently watched Vanessa's performance, no one answered. A minimalist compared to his hip-hop colleagues, Grimy was no more diamonds, extrude flashy labels, and kept his hair buzzed tight. Always dressed entirely in black, as he was tonight. Jeans, logo-less, hooded sweatshirt, and work boots. He appeared to be the perpetual state of mourning. In a way, he was. He had 2 tattoos, a black teardrop under each eye. One was in honor of his late suicidal mother. The other was for his brother, a hemophiliac who survived numerous hospital stays, only to be stabbed on the street, where he bled to death within minutes. Grimy got his record deal a month later. Grimy had spent his formative years in and out of jail for small-time crack dealings. He told interviewers when he actually showed up to do press and felt like answering their silly questions that the time he spent lyrically battling other inmates in the joint had helped him sharpen his rhyming skills. "Lots of talented mofos in there," he said. "Just fell short." A ruffian of the first order, a beat, one with I-40 IQ, studio gangsters, including his label mate, Floss, with more pity than contempt. A lot of ninjas in these industries, and I ain't naming no names, get caught up in trying to be something they ain't just to sell records. Lamont's thug genius had sold Rolling Stone. "I don't do that. I'm a rapper, not an actor. I never knew my father. My mother killed herself when I was 15. My brother got killed a few years later. My reality is gritty enough. I've done wrong in my life, selling drugs because people told me that was all I could do, right? I've been locked up in a real prison, so don't send me no video treatment where you got me rapping in a jail cell. There's nothing glamorous about that. I got a second chance, so don't take me back there. Not ever to pretend. I don't need to pretend. I don't need to romanticize shit. Everybody's worried about going platinum, being better, hotter, richer than the next man. But when you're number one, ain't nowhere to go but down. I don't sweat the charts and I don't check sale figures. If you want to buy my shit, cool. If not, don't worry about me. I'ma be all right. Mustafa was pulling Vanessa down from her makeshift stage when Lamont returned and spotted his multi-platinum seller. He approached wearing a proud smile, arms spread wide, and bellowed, "My thug genius." DJ Billy spotted Grimy and threw on Buckshots, the hit from his second album that included a chorus of nothing but gunshots. The bullet-popping intro startled a few of the older club-goers not familiar with the record. Nate, Lamont's buddy and lawyer, gleefully noticed some of them almost died for cover. "Where you been?" Daryl asked Lamont as he slid down next to Grimy. "You missed Vanessa's little show. Thought we was gonna get a titty flash." It didn't surprise Lamont. His sister-in-law was a wild thing, and her attention-seeking stunts never stopped. Alonzo needed to kick her ass, and he made a mental note to tell Zoe that. At any rate, her titties were old news. He seen them poolside peeking out of flimsy tops during runway shows in European magazines. He'd go over and make his disapproval known to her in a minute. Right now, he had a story to tell. "Titty flash," Lamont said, a devilish grin forming. "I got more than that in the bathroom." Nothing more specific needed to be said. Lamont was known to be an ardent fan of the blowjob. Terribly germ-phobic, he wouldn't have unprotected intercourse with a woman until he sent her to his own doctor for an HIV test. Blowjobs were a way to get immediately satisfied his carnal cravings with only a quick spot of the mouth to rule out any visible sores. Since his sexual predilection was well known as the party circuit, women who enjoyed giving such pleasure often approached him out of nowhere. Who knew there were so many? "Damn, witch," he said. "Who from?" They all immediately started scanning the room. "Her," Lamont said, nodding towards an attractive woman in the early 30s who was making her way through the crowd. "With the pink top." Grimy's eyes canvassed the room. Whether performing or hanging with his bougie down Bronx dogs, Grimy's ruggedly handsome face usually took on one of three expressions: rage, disinterest, or a temporary weed-induced calm. Unless performing, he spoke in a flat monotone, as though backing his words with any emotion was an arduous task he was not up to. But when he located the women in question, his eyes flashed and he nearly shrieked. "That old white bitch?" "She was waiting outside of the bathroom when I came out," Lamont said. The guys all huddled around to hear the details over the thump of music. "I've met her before. Amy, I think her name is. She pushed me back in, locked the door. She just pulled my shit out and never said a word." "Did she swallow?" Witchy begged to know, worshipful of Lamont's brazenness and wondering why things like this never happened to him. "Yes," Lamont happily confirmed. "Yes, she did." "So," Grimy inquired hesitantly, "you fuck with white bitches?" "What's wrong with this, ninja?" Lamont groaned, throwing his hands up in mock exasperation. "Grimy, you a rap star. You've never fucked a white bitch?" Grimy stared at him blankly. "Not even a DICK suck?" Grimy shook his head. "Nah, I don't get down like that." Grimy, Lamont moaned dramatically. You gotta get out more, ninja. Try new things. A low chuckle rumbled around the table. Grimy, you kidding me, right? Grimy shook his head. But you've been all over the world on tour, Lamont yelled, trying to understand how this could have happened. You've been to London, Germany, Japan. Grimy shrugged. Are you telling me, Lamont smirked, that you go to all these countries and you do not sample their cuisine? Whatever. Wherever I'm at, they find me the black chicks. Grimy explained of his posse's international system of rounding up girls for his pleasure. Lamont squinted at him. What are you, prejudiced? Grimy almost grinned. Feeling right at home at the center of attention, Lamont continued to milk this riff for the crew's amusement. I was with you in Japan, Ninja, he pressed, lapsing into full ebonics because his bit would sound funnier that way. Ain't no black bitches over there, not unless they were on vacation. And those cute little Japanese honeys were hopping around you like you was a museum piece. All you had to do was sit there and let one of them jump on top of your DICK. You didn't get none of that? Did you? Grimy wondered. Lamont gaped at him with widened eyes, pretending to take offense, and slipped back into urban sophisticated mode. I'm an international fucking playboy, money. Of course I got some. You get one with real long hair. If it feels like silk, they brush it all over you. Their skin's all soft. I'm talking totally hairless, man. They're so tiny, you can just flip them everywhere. Which way? Lamont paused to add a visible shiver of excitement for effect. It's the shit. Everyone cracked up except Grimy, who turned up his nose unimpressed. I don't like sushi. That made everyone howl, but it was Lamont's instant comeback that slayed him. How would you know, Ninja? You ain't never try it. The woman or the actual food, Nate chimed in. Grimy, that ninja that goes to Japan and eats lunch and dinner at McDonald's every day. Grimy confirmed the conjecture with a nod and added, breakfast too. You've been around the world 3 times, Lamont said, shaking his head, but you are one of them local MFs. Seriously, kid, you need to educate your palate in more ways than one. Grimy looked lost. Educate his what? He leaned back into his booth, and a flamboyantly dressed man pranced by as if the outfit itself was contagious. Lamont threw his arm around Grimy's shoulder and pulled him in closer. You want to know the best thing about all these white women in here? Lamont scanned the room and cackled at the punchline before he even delivered them. None of them want to marry us. A spontaneous burst of laughter rang out from the table. They might want Ivy League Nathaniel with his lawyer ass, but they don't want any hip-hop ninjas like us, Lamont said, conveniently grouping himself, a college graduate who had been raised in a stable 2-parent home into the same demographic as Grimy, a fatherless child raised on welfare who received his high school diploma in juvenile lockdown facility. Lamont yoked Grimy around the neck and then released him. I mean, I could pick any of these white girls in here and decide to make her my girlfriend. He snapped his stubby fingers and waved dismissively. Send her flowers, take her out, buy her expensive shit, play the game. But if I really did love her and wanted to marry her, you think she would? She would if you want some broad who didn't have shit. Because I might be a ninja, but Lamont grinned and tapped his chest proudly. I'm a rich entrepreneur ninja. You feel me? Preach, Nate joked before going over to smooth with some industry folks. He'd heard Monty talk this bullshit before. So had Witchy and Daryl, who were now trying to molest a girl who passed by the table wearing a metallic tube top. But Grimy cocked his head all ears. I mean, Grimes, you're famous, but you're still a ninja from the absolute fucking gutter. Grimy took that as a compliment. You're letting these suburban kids know what it is down there. You're letting them safely experience that. That's the beauty of Grimy. Grimy basked in the praise, but you probably could even marry a minimum wage white girl. Lamont glowed with glee. Grimy didn't, unless she's fucking hated her parents. True, Grimy mumbled. True. But these women in here, they're educated. They have their own careers, Lamont rambled. These women can meet and marry a Wall Street guy. They all want rich men, but with a rich white guy is their first choice. But they do want to F us for the thrill of it. They want to go to the dark side, Lamont said, wiggling his eyebrows, and have a story to tell. Or just a story to keep to themselves. He took a big gulp of water and held his fist out to Grimy. Who am I to deny them that? Grimy distractedly pounded Lamont's fist with his own, while his eyes wandered toward the woman in pink sitting at her table, laughing. She was sitting with 2 other women and a gray-haired man. Who's that guy? Grimy asked. Lamont squinted at the table's direction and watched as the woman, possibly named Amy, kissed Gustave, his partner in Swirl, full on the mouth. Now he remembered where he knew her from. Gustave spotted Lamont and waved. Returning the wave, Lamont casually told Grimy, her husband. Grimy watched this exchange. Then, eyes twinkling, asked Lamont, you know him? Sort of, Lamont said. Grimy ogled the couple, thinking Lamont is the pimp of the century. So Lamont said, nudging his cash cow in the ribs to pull his attention back to the important matters. How's the album going? Okay, guys, that is the end of chapter 13. So we are going to stop here. Chapter 14 will start Ms. Jackson. So it looks like we have met a couple of more members in TLE Entertainment, which I think is interesting. I'm really loving, how they're introducing the characters. I'm kind of feeling like one of these artists are probably going to get down with Mimi. Just not sure who it is, or if it's going to be Lamont and maybe one person falls in love. I don't know. I mean, these couple of chapters were crazy. The sex scenes or like the sex descriptions were crazy. I, had to be careful a little bit of what I was saying. So sometimes I was trying to kind of spell it out, or for like, terms that I don't want to be disrespectful, I'm paraphrasing. But we will continue this. Drop in the comments if you're liking this book so far. Let me know what you guys think. I'm sure as we continue to get into it, it's going to get more raunchy, it's going to get more interesting, and it's going to get more after hours juicy. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Your girl put in work. And for all the haters, I do not want to hear nothing about my reading. I made sure to take it real slow, stop at the commas, and give you guys the real. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I hope to see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you can be alerted when we have our new chapter reading. Love y'all. And I will see you guys on the next video.
Ooh, mama, it's cocktail hour, so rock 'em up. Ooh, mama, it's cocktail hour, so pour it up.